My dad left a voicemail. Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer. Now you've lost everything. Mom smirked. I didn't argue, just texted back fine. Then I quietly removed my name from the $270,000 mortgage, and 24 hours later their lawyer panicked, begging for answers. Christmas is cancelled. Expect a call from my lawyer. That was the voicemail waiting for me on a grey Wednesday morning in November. No hello. No explanation. Just those 10 words that shattered what was left of my world. Dad's voice, the same one that used to read me bedtime stories, now cold as winter wind cutting through my Chicago apartment. I played it 3 times, not because I didn't understand, but because I couldn't believe it was real. I stood there in my kitchen, holding a mug of coffee that had gone stone cold, staring at my iPhone like it might suddenly apologize for delivering such brutal news. But there it was, 7 seconds that erased 32 years of being their daughter. 20 minutes later, another message buzzed through. Mom, this time. Well, Elizabeth, you've really outdone yourself this time. I could practically see her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her granite countertop, that smug little smile she wore whenever she thought she'd won. Hope you're satisfied. Now you've lost everything that matters. No context. No explanation. Just venom wrapped in fake disappointment. I didn't call back screaming. I didn't demand answers. I didn't even cry. Instead, I opened our family group chat, the one we used for coordinating Sunday dinners and birthday plans, and typed 2 simple words, got it. That was it. No question mark. No dramatic paragraphs defending myself. Just acknowledgement. Because honestly, what else was there to say? This was how they treated me, their daughter who co-signed their mortgage when the bank almost foreclosed 3 years ago. The same daughter who paid their heating bills during those brutal Chicago winters when Dad was between construction jobs. The one who loaned my brother Kevin $15,000 to start his landscaping business and never saw a dime back, not even a thank you card. I was the daughter who canceled weekend trips to Colorado, postponed my own dreams, turned down dates because family comes first. At least, that's what I believed. Family meant something to me. But apparently, the feeling wasn't mutual. There was no great betrayal on my part, no secret I'd been hiding, no terrible sin that justified this ambush. Just years of quiet resentment that must have been festering in their pristine suburban home until it exploded into that voicemail, into Mom's cruel smirk. I could picture her face perfectly, sitting at her kitchen island with her afternoon glass of Chardonnay, probably feeling victorious after delivering that cutting message. The same woman who let me scrub her Thanksgiving dishes last year, while she gossiped with Kevin's wife about their vacation to Florida. But something inside me whispered, you didn't lose everything, Elizabeth. You're about to discover what you actually have left. And maybe, for the first time in my life, I was ready to listen. Got it. Those 2 words glowed on my phone screen like a neon sign in the darkness. My thumbs had hovered over the keyboard for what felt like hours before I finally hit send. Part of me wanted to type paragraphs, to defend myself, to ask what I'd done wrong. But a bigger part of me already knew the answer wouldn't matter. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I let my mind wander back through the years, tracing the fault lines that had finally cracked wide open. This wasn't sudden, it was the inevitable result of decades of being the backup daughter. Growing up in our split-level house in Naperville, Kevin was always the star. The golden boy with the killer smile and natural charm who could talk his way out of any trouble. When he barely graduated high school, it was Kevin just needs to find his passion. When I graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern, it was Elizabeth, do you think you could help Kevin with his college applications? I remember sitting at our old oak dining table when I was 25, watching Mom fuss over Kevin's latest career crisis. He'd been fired from another job, something about showing up late too many times, but somehow it became about how hard life was for him. Elizabeth, honey, Mom had said, not even looking up from cutting Kevin's favorite apple pie, you know your brother has such a good heart. He just needs someone reliable to help him get on track. Maybe you could co-sign for that apartment he wants? You're so good with financial stuff. I'd smiled and nodded, swallowing the words I really wanted to say. Because what was the alternative? Watching my little brother struggle? Letting the family down? I was the responsible one, that was my role, my label, my prison. The pattern was always the same. Kevin had potential, I had dependability. Kevin had dreams, I had practical skills. Kevin needed help, I provided it. No questions asked, no gratitude expected, no appreciation given. When Kevin wanted to start his landscaping business, I didn't just co-sign the equipment loan, I helped him write his business plan, connected him with my contacts, even spent weekends helping him plant flowers for his first clients. Mom called it sisterly support. I called it love, though looking back, I'm not sure anyone else in the family would have used that word. The worst part wasn't the money I gave or the time I spent. It was the slow realization that I'd become invisible in my own family. My promotion to senior marketing manager at the advertising firm barely registered a congratulations text. But when Kevin landed his first big landscaping contract, we had a family dinner to celebrate, complete with champagne and Mom's famous chocolate cake. I used to lie awake at night wondering what I'd done wrong, why I wasn't enough to earn their attention without first earning their gratitude. Why my achievements were footnotes while Kevin's every small success was front-page news. The mortgage situation had been the final test I didn't know I was taking. When Mom and Dad faced foreclosure, they didn't ask Kevin for help. They asked me. Because Kevin was still getting established, and I was so stable, so responsible, so capable of handling these things. I'd sat in that bank office, signing papers that put my own financial future at risk, telling myself this was what families do for each other. This was love in action. But as I stared at my phone screen now, those two words still glowing, got it, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't their daughter. I was their insurance policy. I walked into First National Bank on Thursday morning with steady hands and a clearer mind than I'd had in years. The marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the soft hum of business as usual filled the air. Customers came and went, handling their everyday banking, completely unaware that I was about to set a fire that would burn down everything my family thought they knew about me. "How can I help you today?" The teller's smile was practiced, professional, kind. "I need to speak with someone about removing my name from a mortgage," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. She didn't blink. This was just another transaction to her, another piece of paperwork in her day. She directed me to a small office in the back where a loan officer named Janet Peterson sat behind a desk cluttered with coffee rings and family photos. Janet was maybe 45, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She pulled up the account on her computer, her eyebrows raising slightly as the numbers filled her screen. "This is a substantial amount, Miss Johnson. $270,000 is nothing to take lightly. Are you absolutely certain about this decision?" "I'm certain," I replied, watching her fingers hover over the keyboard. "I've thought about nothing else." The paperwork was a blur of legal jargon and signature lines. I'd researched this moment for weeks, understanding exactly what removing my name would mean. Without me as co-signer, my parents would need to qualify for the mortgage on their own, something they couldn't do 3 years ago and certainly couldn't do now with Dad's sporadic construction income and Mom's part-time job at the boutique. As I signed each page, I felt something shifting inside me. Not anger, not revenge, just the quiet satisfaction of finally saying no. Of finally putting myself first after 32 years of coming last. "All processed," Janet said, sliding the final documents across her desk. "You should know that the other parties on this mortgage will be notified within 48 hours. I nodded, tucking the papers into my purse. "I understand." Outside, Chicago buzzed with its usual energy. People rushed past on the sidewalk, clutching coffee cups and checking phones, wrapped up in their own lives and problems. None of them knew that the quiet woman walking among them had just pulled the rug out from under her entire family. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. For the first time in years, I was thinking about me. I drove home to my Lincoln Park apartment, the small one-bedroom I could actually afford without stretching myself thin to help everyone else. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money, decorated with my own choices, filled with the peace that comes from not waiting for the next crisis call. That evening, I made myself dinner, pasta with mushrooms and a glass of red wine, and settled onto my couch with a book I'd been trying to finish for months. Every time I tried to read it before, my phone would ring with some family emergency that needed my immediate attention and financial intervention. Tonight, my phone stayed silent. I knew this quiet wouldn't last. I knew that in less than 2 days, their world would explode when they realized what I'd done. The calls would come, frantic and desperate and probably cruel. They'd demand explanations, make accusations, try every manipulation tactic they'd perfected over the years. But for now, in this moment, I had peace. I had chosen myself for once, and it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in decades. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I was free. 47 missed calls. 47. I stared at my phone screen Saturday morning, scrolling through the chaos that had erupted overnight. The notifications kept coming. Texts, voicemails, missed calls from Mom, Dad, and Kevin, each more frantic than the last. Elizabeth, what have you done? Mom's first voicemail was pure panic wrapped in fury. Call me back right now. The second one, from Dad, we need to talk. This is serious, Elizabeth. You can't just walk away from family obligations. Kevin's text was shorter but somehow more desperate. Liz, please tell me this is some kind of mistake. Call me. I set the phone aside and made myself breakfast, scrambled eggs with toast, orange juice, coffee. Normal Saturday morning things while my family's world crumbled 2 hours away in Naperville. The voicemails kept coming throughout the day, each one revealing more of their panic. Elizabeth, the bank called. They're saying the mortgage needs to be restructured immediately or we'll be in default within 30 days. You can't do this to us. Mom's voice cracked on the last word. We raised you better than this. Dad's disappointment felt like a weight I'd carried my whole life, but somehow it felt lighter now, less important. Family doesn't abandon family. But it was the message from their lawyer, Robert Hayes, that really showed me how desperate they'd become. Miss Johnson, I represent your parents regarding the mortgage situation. We need your signature immediately to prevent foreclosure proceedings. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience. This is time sensitive. I listened to each message twice, not out of guilt or second guessing, but with the strange detachment of watching someone else's life fall apart. These weren't my problems anymore. I hadn't created this crisis, I'd simply stopped being their solution to it. The texts were even more revealing. Kevin, Mom's been crying all morning. Dad's talking about selling the house. Is this really what you want? Mom, I don't understand how you could be so selfish. After everything we've done for you. That last one almost made me laugh. Everything they'd done for me? Like what? Raising me to be their personal bank? Teaching me that my worth was measured by my usefulness? Showing me that love was conditional on what I could provide? By evening, the tone shifted. The anger gave way to pleading. Elizabeth, sweetheart, please let's talk about this. Mom's voice was softer now, calculated. We're family. We can work this out. You know we love you. But it was too late for that. Years too late. I spent Saturday night cleaning my apartment, doing laundry, catching up on the life I'd been living while constantly managing theirs. My space felt different now, truly mine for the first time since I'd moved in 2 years ago. Before, it had always felt temporary, like I was just borrowing it until the next family crisis required me to sacrifice something else. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang again. This time I answered. Elizabeth. Kevin's voice was smaller than I'd heard it since we were kids. Can we please just talk? About what, Kevin? About fixing this. About finding a solution that works for everyone. I was quiet for a long moment, looking out my window at the Chicago skyline twinkling in the distance. There is no solution, Kevin. Not anymore. But they're going to lose the house. Then maybe they should have thought about that before they decided Christmas was cancelled and I was no longer part of this family. The silence stretched between us until he finally whispered, Liz, please. I'm sorry, Kevin, but I'm done being everyone's backup plan. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more pleading, more desperate attempts to pull me back into the role I'd played my entire life. But I wasn't going back. Not this time. They showed up at my apartment Sunday afternoon without warning, all 3 of them standing in my hallway looking like they'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Mom's usually perfect makeup was smudged, Dad's face was gray with exhaustion, and Kevin kept running his hands through his hair like he couldn't figure out what to do with them. We need to talk, Dad said, his voice hoarse. I almost didn't let them in. Almost closed the door and let them figure out their own problems the way I'd been forced to figure out mine. But curiosity won out. I wanted to see what their final play would be. Fine. Come in. I stepped aside, watching them file into my small living room like they were entering enemy territory. Mom immediately started her performance, the wounded mother routine that had worked on me for decades. Elizabeth, honey, I don't understand what's gotten into you. This isn't like you at all. Isn't it? I remained standing while they settled onto my couch like uncomfortable strangers. Or is this exactly like me, and you just never bothered to notice? Dad leaned forward, his contractor's hands clasped together. Look, sweetheart, maybe we said some things we didn't mean. The holidays are stressful, you know how it is. But this, removing yourself from the mortgage, this is too far. Too far. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Dad, you left me a voicemail saying Christmas was cancelled and your lawyer would be calling. Mom told me I'd lost everything that mattered. But me protecting my financial future is too far. Kevin shifted uncomfortably. Liz, come on. You know they didn't mean it like that. How did they mean it, Kevin? Because it sounded pretty clear to me. Mom's facade cracked slightly. We were upset, Elizabeth. You have to understand, you just disappeared. You stopped returning calls, stopped coming to Sunday dinners. We felt like you were pulling away from the family. I stared at her for a long moment. I missed 2 Sunday dinners because I was working overtime to pay my bills. The same bills I've been struggling with because I've spent the last 3 years helping all of you with yours. We never asked you to, Dad started. You didn't have to ask. The words came out louder than I'd intended, but I didn't care anymore. That was the beauty of it, wasn't it? You trained me so well that I just automatically said yes to everything. The mortgage, the loans, the emergency payments, the babysitting, the problem solving. I was your personal ATM and therapist rolled into one. Mom's eyes flashed with something ugly. Well, forgive us for thinking we could count on our daughter. Count on me for what? Money? Labor? Cleaning up your messes? Because you certainly never counted on me for anything else. When's the last time any of you asked how I was doing? Really asked, not just as a prelude to asking for something. The silence stretched uncomfortably. When's the last time you celebrated something good happening in my life? I continued. When's the last time one of you called just to talk, not because you needed something? Kevin looked genuinely confused. But that's what families do, Liz. We help each other. No, Kevin. That's what I did. I helped. You took. There's a difference. Mom stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're being dramatic and selfish. We're your family. Are you? I looked at each of them. Because when I needed you to just treat me with basic respect, to include me in family decisions, to acknowledge my worth as more than just my bank account, where were you? When I was working 60-hour weeks to keep my head above water while paying your bills, did any of you offer to help me? Dad's jaw tightened. Life is hard for everyone, Elizabeth. You're right. It is. And I'm tired of making mine harder so yours can be easier. I walked to the door and opened it. I think you should leave. Elizabeth, please. Mom's voice took on that wheedling tone that used to make me cave immediately. Don't let pride ruin our family. I met her eyes steadily. I'm not ruining anything, Mom. I'm just not fixing it anymore. They filed out slowly, each one looking back like they expected me to change my mind, to call them back, to return to being their safety net. But I didn't. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, listening to their muffled voices in the hallway. For the first time in my life, I told my family exactly how I felt. And somehow, the world hadn't ended. It felt like a beginning. 3 weeks passed in blissful silence. No crisis calls at midnight. No emergency loan requests. No guilt trips disguised as family concern. I started remembering what my life felt like when it belonged to me. I picked up photography again, something I'd loved in college but abandoned because hobbies are expensive and my money always seemed to be needed elsewhere. I bought a decent camera and spent weekends exploring Chicago, capturing moments that belonged to nobody but me. I even went on a date. Marcus, a teacher I'd met at a coffee shop, had been asking me out for months. I'd always said no because Sunday was family dinner, or I had to help Kevin with something, or Mom needed me to run errands. This time, I said yes. We went to a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy, and for 3 hours, nobody called me with a crisis. Nobody needed me to fix anything or pay for anything or clean up any messes. I just got to be Elizabeth, the woman who loved photography and good conversation and tiramisu. You seem different lately, my friend Amanda said over drinks Thursday night. Lighter somehow. I cut some toxic people out of my life, I said, surprised by how easy it was to say. Anyone I know? I almost said no, then caught myself. My family, actually. Amanda nearly choked on her cosmopolitan. Your whole family? It's complicated, but yeah. Turns out blood doesn't automatically make someone good for you. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Good for you. That takes real courage. Courage. I'd never thought of it that way, but maybe she was right. The call came Friday morning while I was getting ready for work. Not from Mom or Dad this time, but from Robert Hayes, their lawyer. Miss Johnson, I need to inform you that foreclosure proceedings have been initiated on the Riverside Drive property. Your parents have 30 days to bring the mortgage current or find alternative financing. Okay, I said, applying mascara in my bathroom mirror. Okay. He sounded genuinely surprised. Miss Johnson, do you understand what this means? Your parents will lose their home. I understand perfectly, Mr. Hayes. Surely there's something we can work out. Some compromise that would. There's nothing to work out. I'm no longer involved in their financial situation. But your family. Surely family means something to you. I set down my mascara and looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. The woman staring back at me had clear eyes and straight shoulders. She looked strong. Mr. Hayes, my family made it very clear that I was no longer part of their Christmas plans or their future. I'm simply honoring their wishes. That afternoon, I got a call from Kevin's wife, Stephanie. We'd always gotten along well, and her voice was gentle but desperate. Elizabeth, I know this is awkward, but Kevin's been sick with worry. Your parents are talking about having to sell everything and move into a small apartment. Kevin keeps saying it's his fault for not being more financially stable, for depending on you so much. Part of me felt bad for Kevin. He'd been raised with the same twisted family dynamics I had. He'd just gotten the golden child role while I got the responsibility role. But my sympathy only went so far. Stephanie, I'm sorry Kevin's upset. But this isn't about punishment. It's about me finally putting boundaries in place. But couldn't you maybe just co-sign one more time? Just until they get back on their feet. There it was, the same request that had trapped me for years, just delivered by a different voice. No, Stephanie. I couldn't. The pleading in her voice intensified. But Elizabeth, they're going to lose everything. Then maybe, I said quietly, they should have thought about that before they decided I'd already lost everything that mattered. That weekend, I did something I'd never done before. I turned off my phone completely and went camping in Wisconsin with Amanda and some friends from work. We hiked, made esmeraldas over a campfire, and told stories under the stars. For 2 days, I existed in a world where nobody needed me to fix anything. Where I could just be a person among other people, valued for my company instead of my bank account. When I turned my phone back on Sunday night, there were dozens of missed calls and messages. But instead of the usual panic, I felt only peace. I was learning what freedom felt like, and I never wanted to give it up again. Christmas Eve. 1 year later. I woke up in my new apartment, a bigger place in Lincoln Park with huge windows and exposed brick walls. I'd been able to afford it after my promotion to creative director, a position I'd finally had the mental space to pursue once I stopped managing everyone else's crises. Snow was falling softly outside my windows, dusting the city in clean white. My Christmas tree stood in the corner, a small but perfect Fraser fir decorated with ornaments I'd chosen myself, not family heirlooms loaded with complicated history. I was having people over tonight. Real friends who knew me as Elizabeth the photographer, Elizabeth the creative director, Elizabeth the person, not Elizabeth the family ATM. Amanda was bringing her famous spinach dip. Marcus was making his grandmother's sugar cookies. My neighbor Mrs. Chun was contributing her legendary hot chocolate. These were people who had chosen to spend their Christmas Eve with me not because they needed something, but because they enjoyed my company. The difference was everything. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me look. Elizabeth, this is your father. I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but it's Christmas Eve. Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking this year. We know we made mistakes. We know we took you for granted. If you're willing, we'd like to talk. Really talk this time. We love you. We miss you. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, no guilty urge to fix things. Just a mild curiosity about whether they meant it this time, followed by the realization that it didn't matter. For 32 years, I'd been waiting for this message. The acknowledgement, the apology, the recognition of my worth beyond my usefulness. I'd imagined this moment would feel triumphant, vindictive, or at least satisfying. Instead, it felt like watching a movie about someone else's life. I'd built something beautiful in the space they'd left behind. I had work I loved, friendships that nourished me, and most importantly, a relationship with myself that didn't depend on anyone else's approval or needs. I typed back a simple response: I appreciate you reaching out. I hope you're well. But I've moved on, and I'm happy now. Then I set the phone aside and went back to preparing for my chosen family. Around 6, my apartment filled with laughter and warmth. Amanda regaled us with stories from her recent trip to Italy. Marcus played guitar while we sang Christmas carols badly but enthusiastically. Mrs. Chun taught us a card game her grandmother had played in Shanghai. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody needed me to solve their problems. Nobody treated me like a supporting character in their story. I was simply part of a group of people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. As the evening wound down and my friends prepared to leave, Amanda pulled me aside. You look happy, she said. Really, genuinely happy. I am, I realized with some surprise. I really am. After everyone left, I cleaned up slowly, savoring the peaceful aftermath of a perfect evening. My phone had stayed silent all night, no crisis calls, no emergency requests, no family drama. I made myself a cup of tea and stood by my window, looking out at the snow-covered city. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably having their own Christmas Eve, maybe in the small apartment they'd moved into after losing the house, maybe having learned to live within their means, maybe not. Kevin was probably with his family, hopefully learning to be more self-reliant. I felt no bitterness toward them, no lingering anger. They'd given me something valuable, though not in the way they'd intended. They'd taught me what I wouldn't accept anymore, what I was worth, and who I really was when I wasn't busy being who they needed me to be. I raised my mug in a small toast to my reflection in the window. Merry Christmas, Elizabeth. You finally came home. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in fresh possibility. And inside my warm apartment, surrounded by the life I'd built with my own hands and heart, I was exactly where I belonged. The family that had rejected me was gone. But the family I'd chosen, and more importantly, the relationship I'd built with myself, would last forever. For the first time in my 33 years, Christmas was perfect. Because for the first time, it was truly mine.